Hey everyone, I am the Tim Chappell, and you're listening to the Stay Great podcast. Today, I'll dive into Dr. Tom Morris's book, Plato's Lemonade Stand. Tom is one of the world's top public philosophers and pioneering business thinkers. He is an American philosopher and former professor of philosophy at the University of Notre Dame in Indiana. He's also a business and motivational speaker that applies philosophical themes and concepts to business and professional life. So about the book, Plato's Lemonade Stand. Most of us grew up hearing the old advice, when life hands you lemons, make lemonade. But typically no one says how. This book examines the wisdom of the great philosophers throughout the centuries to see if they had any advice for great lemonade making. Turns out there is an art of change or transformation composed of three component arts. These are the secrets to the spiritual process the ancients knew of as alchemy. So the art of change involves three component arts like it talks about. The first art is the art of self-control, the second being the art of positive action, and the third art is the art of achievement. So today I'll dive into this third art a little bit more, the art of achievement, since I love that. This whole book is filled with great ideas, so order it on Amazon or pick it up from a bookstore if you see it. It's fantastic how well written it is in presenting this ancient philosophy. Anyway, enjoy some excerpts from Tom Morris's book, Plato's Lemonade Stand. In tumultuous times, if we can deal calmly with the unexpected and take the initiative to act positively, then we've already mastered 2/3 of the art that's required for a life of creative adaptation. The third and final aspect of this art of change is the art of achievement. Dealing well with challenging change requires all three arts: the art of self-control that gives us inner strength, the art of positive action to get us moving well, and finally the art of achievement that will incorporate the full array of techniques we have for turning positive action into satisfying accomplishment. From before the time of Plato to the present day, the greatest practical philosophers have left us some penetrating wisdom about life success. Most of their thoughts can be summarized in the form of 7 universal conditions for attaining satisfying success in the challenges and opportunities that we face. I like to call these simple but powerful conditions the 7 C's of success. I'll present them briefly here with the distinctive focus we need in order to understand their involvement in our proper relation to change. These 7 conditions of success are the basic requirements for the art of achievement. They're all important for making the best lemonade out of life's lemons. And so this next little section here talks about the 7 C's of success. In any situation of change, challenge, or new opportunity, in order to move forward productively and raise the probability that we can attain the proper personal or professional success we want, we need to have and use these 7 things. C number 1, a clear conception of what we want, a vivid vision, a goal clearly imagined. C number 2, a strong confidence that we can attain the goal. C number 3, a focused concentration on what it will take to reach the goal. C number 4, a stubborn consistency in pursuing our vision. C number 5, an emotional commitment to the importance of what we're doing. C number 6, a good character to guide us and keep us on a proper course. And C number 7, a capacity to enjoy the process along the way. Good stuff there. I'll go over that again. So the first C is conception. The second one, confidence. The third, concentration. C number 4, consistency. Number 5, commitment. Number 6, character. And 7, capacity. That's some powerful stuff. And people ask me about leadership and success and whatnot. I think that Dr. Morris gives us a great playbook here to achieving success from start to finish. And I'm not going to talk about all 7 of these in detail on the podcast today. You'll have to get the book and understand the full concept of those. But I'm going to go over 3 out of the 7 C's of success just to kind of tease you a little bit into hopefully buying this incredible book. So let's go over the first C. C number 1 says a clear conception of what we want, a vivid vision, a goal clearly imagined. So I'm going to skip ahead in the book here a little bit and read another section where Dr. Morris kind of breaks down a little bit that first C, where he says, in our approach to the initial conception of a new goal, we need to be, in the best sense, opportunistic and properly responsive to our circumstances. We need to strive for both creativity and clarity. And so now that kind of reminds me of this funny story I was told one time. When I hear the phrase opportunistic, this is what comes to mind. So there's this professor that's about to teach a class, and he pours water into a cup and he sets it on the desk as his students are walking into the lecture hall. And all the students settle in, and he begins class by saying that there's 2 types of people in this world class. Who thinks that the glass on my desk here is half full? And so some students raise their hand. Then he asks, who thinks that the glass is half empty? And of course, a few students raise their hand. He says, you see, the professor said, everyone is either an optimist or a pessimist. And so he writes a big number 2 on the chalkboard. Then all of a sudden this one student bursts through the door, and the professor and everybody is just looking at this individual and can tell that the individual is late for class. He's panting, he's catching his breath, so that student must have started running to the lecture. So he took a second to stand in front of the class just to catch his breath, and so he sees that glass of water on the desk, he grabs it, and he just drinks the whole thing. And the professor looks at him for a little bit while the student drinks the water, and he just thinks for a moment, and then the professor walks over to the chalkboard, slowly erases the number 2 that he'd written on the board, and says, as I was saying, class, there are 3 types of people in this world. And he writes a big number 3 on the board, and he says, there are optimists, there are pessimists, and there are opportunists. And so clearly, the student knew exactly what he needed in that moment and capitalized on the opportunity that was in front of him. And what I love about that story is that we should always be looking for opportunities in our lives. And when we see those opportunities, we should strive for both creativity and clarity, as Dr. Morris said. And I would also kind of throw in my own little addition there, is also be definitive in that decision making. And he talks a little bit about that later, and I'll talk about the creative factor that he mentions a little bit further on in the book. So it's always the creative person who's ultimately best adapted to our world of change, and each of us has it in us to be creative within the circle of our distinctive talents. Masterful adaptation often requires creativity conforming our lives to the world around us, and at other times, it means creatively conforming the world around us to our dreams. Either task is enhanced by knowledge. That's why constant learning should always be a part of our adventures. Learning about ourselves and our work, certainly, but also learning more widely about our world and how human nature functions within it. The broader our experience and learning is, the better we're positioned for innovative goal pursuit. The most powerful goals are always rooted firmly in reality and driven by intentions that reach beyond what's already real. A clear conception of a desired attainment that arises from a broad base of knowledge and a responsibly creative vision guided by proper values can lead us powerfully in our work and our lives. And so that part where he writes, that's why constant learning should always be a part of our adventures, learning about ourselves and our work, certainly, but also learning more widely about the world and how human nature functions within it. I think that's a deep philosophical thought there. And of course, we should always be learning, and that is what will make us more adaptable to change when it comes our way, whenever life may hand us lemons. And so that's a huge takeaway. Constantly be learning and thinking about your place in the world. That's a deep part of philosophy, and it's good stuff. So now I want to move on to Dr. Morse's fourth C, which is consistency. Again, I highly recommend getting just the whole book so that you can read all of this. It's just incredible how well he can break this down. Let me get to this page here. Consistency doesn't mean continuing to do things the same way we've always done them. On the contrary, in changing times, we need to be highly flexible and continuously adaptive in order to remain consistent with our higher goals and deepest values. The consistency that facilitates success is a form of faithfulness with goals and values that refuses to be derailed by either inner distractions or outer events. We should monitor ourselves in an honest and critical process of self-examination and frequently seek to assess whether our behavior is staying true to what we believe in and seek. So consistency is the fourth C in the 7 C's of Morse's success. Well, it is about mid-February when I'm recording this episode. So my question to you, the listener, is, have you stayed consistent with whatever goals that you might have set for yourself this year? And be honest, I know I have fallen off the path a little bit when it comes to a few of my goals, but I like that he says in changing times, we need to be highly flexible and continuously adaptive in order to remain consistent with our highest goals and deepest values, right? So it's just about, if you get knocked off that path, get back on it. So I know I fell off on Valentine's Day, and I had a few too many donuts that were not a part of my nutrition plan. I had stayed consistent pretty well throughout January with not having any sweets or any sugar-coated lies, as I like to call them. And so I had to adapt and make sure that I went a little harder in my workouts that week so that I could still achieve the goal of living a healthier lifestyle overall. So that is one of my higher goals this year. And every year people set goals, make resolutions, whatever you want to call it. The problem is that they'll be consistent for a while, for about maybe the month of January. They'll fall off the path in February and then never get back on that path. So I am imploring you, if you are listening to this and you are off the path right now, get back on it. Get back to being consistent, if that applies to you like it applied to me in my moment of weakness. I can't stay away from the Krispy Kreme donuts when they're just hot and right there in front of me. So good. So it is still just February, so you got plenty of time to put in that consistent work and accomplish whatever goals or resolutions that you got set for yourself this year. If it's just February, make sure you're not getting into October and remembering, oh yeah, I set that goal back in December or January of last year. So there's this good quote by Bruce Lee in this section that I want to mention before I read the next. Bruce Lee said this very simple phrase, and I love it. It says, "Be like water." Now, I like that because it is so simple. And then Tom Morris talks a bit about this. So I'm going to go back to the book here where it says, again, that phrase, "be like water," from Bruce Lee. And it says here in the book, "Be like water, flow flexibly towards your chosen destination with the powerful harmony of this liquid force. That's a trait of our best existential alchemist. Be adaptive and patient in dealing with any obstacles that might stand in your path. And by doing this, you can be a confident force for change. Consistency, at its best, involves both flexibility and firmness. We human beings are at our peak performance when we hold firm to the noblest of changeless ideas and principles, and within those bounds live with open minds and hearts as essentially flexible and resilient forces that can adjust our form and course as circumstances around us change. This is the consistency that counts in our world the most. And if you know me, you know that I love the core value that I have, which is dichotomy. And this is a great example of a dichotomy when Dr. Morris says consistency as best involves both flexibility and firmness. Another way of phrasing that is have standards with grace. That's another dichotomy that I think about a lot. So, like I had mentioned earlier, you may be on the path. You've got your baseline or your standard that you're going through in life, and there may be a time when you fall off that path for whatever reason, either within your control or because of external events. Give yourself some grace every now and then. Get back on the path of consistency and you'll be all right. Be like water. Be both flexible and firm. And then the last C that we'll look at today stands for character, that Mr. Morris has in this book. And he says, a good character to guide us and keep us on a proper course, which is good. And then he starts off this little section when he's talking about that 6C out of the 7 C's of success. Has a good Ben Franklin quote here. There never was a good knife made of bad steel. And so that's good stuff. If you haven't read Poor Richard's Almanac by Benjamin Franklin, that's another good book that I recommend. It's pretty short. It just has a lot of good little phrases to maybe think about, so you can read a few and then think about it. It's a good exercise. And I'm going to read this next section that I highlighted here in the book. It says, the best results in life tend to arise out of strong and innovative collaborations, and such creative endeavors require a solid measure of mutual trust, an attitude that's impossible to maintain over time without a foundation of good character on all sides. Any manifestations of a bad or weak character on the part of an individual will tend to isolate him or her from the best people around. And it's precisely those people who are the most capable of contributing to the collaborative efforts that would be productive of long-term success in any legitimate and positive endeavor. Bad character can't support good outcomes in the ways needed. A good character is an important facilitating condition for positive achievement. And so again, think about that quote by Ben Franklin. It says, there never was a good knife made of bad steel. You know, bad steel being that bad character in this analogy. So the last section I kind of want to read from is about this character. And it said, Aristotle surmised that character consists of qualities or virtues that prepare us well for the challenges of life. Each of these attributes is a strength we can bring to our challenging world. And his particular list has on it items you would expect, but also some things that can strike you initially as surprising. A representative summary of his ancient concepts would have to mention such things as courage, temperance, liberality, magnificence, pride, good temper, friendliness, truthfulness, wittiness, and justice. And he breaks those down a little bit here in the book. It says, so courage is a commitment to do what's right despite the threat of danger. Temperance is a rational moderation and proper self-restraint. Liberality is a freedom in giving to others what can help them. Magnificence is a capacity for acting on a grand scale when needed. Pride is a true sense of honor and worthiness. Good temper is an inner calm displayed by outer behavior. Friendliness is the demeanor of treating others well. Truthfulness is a strong disposition towards honesty in all things. Wittiness is the ability to see and express humor appropriately. And justice, the fundamental disposition of treating others with fairness. So we get all of those. Man, those are good qualities to have. And I've been trying to think about which ones might be, my top 3 or top 5. It's just difficult to pick. I mean, I guess liberality and magnificence stand out to me the most, because I do work on giving to others what would help them as much as I can. So that'd be liberality. And then magnificence, it's like kind of being able to step up and perform. It's like being clutch or something like that. Being what does it say here? The capacity for acting on a grand scale when needed. Those last 2 words, when needed, is important, I think. So I like those 2, but we should all strive to improve all of those qualities within ourselves. So that's something to work on, myself included. And so with good character comes positive success, like what Dr. Moore says in here. That was only 3 out of the 7 C's of success that you can find in his book, Plato's Lemonade Stand. And I was just reading to you some highlights from just that one chapter. There's so many nuggets just within that one chapter, and so that's why I wanted to share it with you. If you picked up this book and only read that chapter 5, then I think it'd be worth it for you to buy this book if you only read that chapter on it. But I do highly recommend you get the book to get some context for all the other ideas that he has, and to get more of a sense of how to handle life when it's giving you lemons. I know for me, this past week, I've been given a lot of lemons, and I am honestly pretty mentally drained from that and having to adapt and change. But that's what we have to do in order to endure life. We have to be consistent, have good character, like we talked about today. And this book has helped me a lot, being able to go back into this book and look through a few of those ideas and get me through some of the tough times that I've had this past week. So today's unpaid ad is, of course, for lemonade, obviously, but I want to give a shout out to both Publix lemonade and Chick-fil-A lemonade. Those are the top tier lemonades, I'd say, in my opinion. I'm never going to turn those down if I ever see them. They're just so delicious, so amazing. So shout out to those companies for making some delicious lemonades out of lemons. Those recipes are just unbelievable and fantastic. Make sure you're connecting with us on all the socials. We are on X at the SG Podcast. You can find these episodes on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and Spotify. We appreciate that. Please leave us a 5-star review. That helps the algorithm. My mom always said, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. And we enjoy recording it and producing these episodes so that you, the listener, get value out of them. I am on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the Tim Chappell, so feel free to reach out and connect with me. Share this episode with somebody so that we can get the message out there and impact somebody else's life in a positive way and add value to them, just like what we're doing with you. Thanks to Black Comet for producing this episode. My producer is working hard behind the scenes to make this happen, so I'm so thankful for that. And everybody remember the 7 C's of success: conception, confidence, concentration, consistency, commitment, character, and capacity. And as always, remember to stay great and take care of each other.